Well, that's not fair. God is something else. God can't be trusted. God can't be trusted. Be careful what you read. But I read it this morning, and when I first read it, I was like, huh? I had your response. But true as it is, God cannot be trusted. Sorry. And let me now qualify that. Lest you start picking up tomatoes and stones. This is a prayer. Actually, this is from Dr. Fount Schultz, who was one of my teachers at Elam. And he posts different things. He holds 2 doctorates, like I said, Hebrew and Greek, and so he posts some really deep things. But you know what's neat is he would be here, and he would enjoy everything that we're enjoying. The presence of God is his passion, is his desire. He's had some pretty neat experiences where others may have looked down on him or looked sideways on him, as they would us. He's a grown man. He's an older man. He's very educated, but he's like a little child when it comes to the Lord. And it's really neat, precious. So anyway, he's been talking about the Garden of Gethsemane, and Jesus in the garden, and about how we are to be intimate with God. Well, here's his post. It's Garden of Prayer, post number 17. A student came to me. I'm having trouble trusting God. Can you help me? I began to share verses that speak of God's faithfulness. She said, I know God is faithful. I just have trouble trusting Him. By the Spirit, I saw with new eyes and replied, you can't trust God because God is not trustworthy. I had her attention. You can't trust God to do things your way. If you want your own way, that's the problem. Come to this attitude. Not my will, but thine be done, and trust will come. Without total commitment, there is no Garden of Eden experience for us. I said Garden of Gethsemane. It was actually the Garden of Eden. And Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane says what? In Matthew 22, 24, or something like that. Father, if it's possible to take this cup from me, take it. But not my will, but yours be done. So the truth is, God is not trustworthy to follow your plan. See, we don't get to do whatever we want to do and say, God, come along with us. And sometimes we get busy doing other things that God's not a part of, and we say, where is God? He's not into what you're doing because it's not called what you to do. He's saying, follow me. Follow me. And your will be done. It doesn't mean it's going to be an easy will. It doesn't mean it's going to be easy. Trust that every whoop on the back, or the lash on the back that Jesus faced, and every punch, and every spit, and every accusation, and everything that Jesus experienced in God's will was not easy. Even into the point where they nailed and hung him on the cross, God's will. And Jesus followed God's will. That was not easy. Following God's will is not always going to be easy. And it's not always going to be driving a pink Cadillac. Burgundy cherry would be nice. That CTS fast. Boom. God's will is not ever going to be, it's not always easy. Sometimes, but most times, it's really not. But nevertheless, Lord, not but yours be done. If you looked at that garden confession with Jesus, not my will, but yours be done, you can follow some cross references in the book of John, and it'll show you that Jesus always says, I don't speak on my own, but what the Father tells me to speak. I didn't come to fulfill my will. I came to fulfill His will for my life. You have a purpose in this life. You have a purpose. But just make sure that our purpose is what He proposed for our life. Not my will. Yours be done. Yours be done. And then the peace of God that surpasses all understanding keeps us in Him, because I know I'm right smack dab in the center of God's will. And it's okay. And it's okay. Because the affirmation of the Father is what I seek, not the affirmation of man. Because the affirmation of man is so flighty. It's so here today and gone tomorrow. You know, it could have been a bad meal and no longer they like you anymore. Whatever. It's just people are flighty sometimes. I'm glad none of you are. And none of you picked up a stone or say get off the stage when I said God cannot be trusted. I did say that. But He can be, because as long as we do His will, He will always follow us. Is that better? I can get behind the pulpit now? It's just like Dr. Fount Schultz to give us something that is deep in meaning and catches your attention. And this sermon that I want to share with you, it's just a little Christianity 101 sermon that I was looking at this morning, or this week, and I even added a little bit of stuff this morning to it. But, in high school, kids do their best, and most kids will do their best if they have aspirations to go on and to get education and what have you. And if they're a really good athlete, whether male or female, it doesn't matter. But college will start recruiting high school students because they really want them to go to their college, to whether it's in academics of some kind or whether it's in sports, and that's where my mind always goes to, is in the sport arena, and to be able to better their department, and whether it's whatever it might be. But then it goes from high school to college, and then from college to the professional world. College athletes going to the pros. I watched a little bit of the Lakers and the Rockets basketball. I'm starting to like basketball a little again. It's taken a little while. I got a little sour taste between the Lakers and the Kings, Game 6. You remember that? I've told you before. I'm finally trying to get over it. Well, there's LeBron James on the Lakers now, who Cleveland had looked at him. Cleveland Cavaliers. That was a different sport. The Cleveland Cavaliers looked at him when he was in high school. And they said, this kid is amazing. He's a big kid and everything else. And so they recruited him. Instead of going to college, they signed him. So he skipped college. And he's one of the greatest basketball players, arguably, that has possibly ever played. Some will say, some will pick Michael Jordan, others. But nevertheless, he's in the top echelon of his field in basketball, and he's recruited right out of high school. He's been playing for quite some time now. There's been other high schoolers going into the professional field, if you will. In my profession, what I do beyond pastoring church at Gold River, selling and trading cards, we are in a place where we used to, we actually doubled to triple our profits because of these recruits going into the profession. And football next year is going to be a big thing because there's a lot of young college that the pros are looking to recruit to their teams, and it's like 7 quarterbacks, 5 or 7 quarterbacks that are. So my job is pretty safe, and because for the next while, people are doing well and they're getting promoted because eyes of others are on them. The title of this message this morning, just a simple one, is that Jesus has you singled out. Jesus has you singled out for greatness. In other words, Jesus has his eye on you. And you may look at yourself and say, why would, and I'm just a plain, and there's been a reference to normal on the dryer setting. I'm just the normal on a dryer setting or normal on a wash. Why would Jesus have me singled out? I'm going to tell you how that works out in Peter's life. So if you would, turn your Bibles to, Luke. Luke chapter 4. Luke chapter 4, and I'm going to start from 38. Because Jesus had his eye on just a normal person. Simon, later named Peter, the rock. Now he arose from the synagogue, that's Jesus rose from the synagogue and entered Peter's house. But Simon's wife's mother was sick with a high fever. Isn't it something? Simon's wife's mother was sick. And so my mind is, I wonder what Simon's wife was like. She's never mentioned. Why? Anyway, that's another sermon, another day. Just a question there. But Simon's wife's mother was sick with a high fever, and they made request of him concerning her. And so he stood over her and rebuked the fever, and it left her. And immediately she arose and served them. And when the sun was setting, all those who had any that were sick and various diseases brought them to him, and he laid his hands on every one of them and healed them. And demons also came out of many, crying out and saying, "You are the Christ, the Son of God." And in rebuking them, did not allow them to speak, for they knew that he was the Christ. Verse 42, now when it was day, he departed and went into a deserted place. And the crowd sought him and came to him and tried to keep him from leaving them. But he said to them, I must preach the kingdom of God to other cities also. Because of this purpose I have been sent. Not my will, but his will. And he began preaching in the synagogues of Galilee. And so it was, as a multitude pressed about him in chapter 5, verse 1, to hear the word of God, that he stood by the lake of Gennesaret and saw 2 boats standing by the lake. But the fishermen had gone from them, and they were washing their nets. And then he got into one of the boats, which was Simon's, and asked him to put out a little from the land. He sat down and taught the multitudes from the boat. When he stopped speaking, he said to Simon, launch out into the deep and let down your nets for a catch. Oh, Lord. Simon answered and said to him, Master, we have toiled all night and caught nothing. Nevertheless, at your word, I will let down the net. Not my will, but yours. And when they had done this, they caught a great number of fish, and their net was breaking. And so they signaled to their partners in the other boat to come and help them. And they came and filled both the boats, so that they began to sink. When Simon Peter saw it, he fell down at Jesus' knees, saying, Depart from me, for I am a sinful man, O Lord. For he and all who were with him were astonished at the catch of fish which they had taken. And also were James and John, the sons of Zebedee, who were partners with Simon. And Jesus said to Simon, Do not be afraid. From now on you will catch men. And so when they had brought their boats to the land, they forsook all and followed him. One point, and it's the title of the message, Jesus has his eye on you. Jesus had his eye on Simon. Simon, this is your time in your life. I've got my eye on you. And I'm not going to let it go, but it's going to start out small. Jesus had his eye on him, on Peter, from the beginning. It says that Jesus went to Simon's house after teaching in the synagogue, and probably for a meal. Jesus, think about it, Jesus could have went anywhere. There would have been a lot of people that would have loved to have. I wonder how many people even invited Jesus, hey, would you come to my house, or would you come to my house? No, I've got a purpose in mind. I've got a focus, and it's that man, Simon. Simon, I'm going to come to your house today. And you know, you got to think a little bit beyond the box there of what we read is that you got to think that they would have told Jesus, hey, your mother-in-law is sick. How many know this? That when somebody's sick, you stay away. I don't want to catch it. Just stay, you know, you see a little bit of the nose running and everything. Please don't. No. Stay there. Stay there. My oldest brother, I forget what it was, but he had a cold, and we were going to invite him over for dinner at my folks' house on Thursday. Mom and Dad back on Wednesday. Is that when you came home? Tuesday or Wednesday? Tuesday. So it was Wednesday we came over for dinner. Well, it was on the way over there. I thought, well, how dumb am I? I forgot to invite my brother. So, hey, Steve, you want to come? Well, we've already been making dinner, and I can tell he's not feeling well in the, you know, and he's been sick for a little while. So he says, well, I'm still, yeah, stay home. Stay home. The last time he saw me and that I wasn't feeling good, he says, I love you, little brother, but stay away. Stay away. Don't want you here. Jesus, you know, my wife's sick. Maybe we ought to, no. Jesus had a plan. He had a purpose. Nothing was going to waylay Jesus because he had his eye on Peter. And he had his eye on Peter for greatness in Peter's life. So to the house they arrive, and Peter watches Jesus heal his mother-in-law, and she begins to serve them. Starts out small, one person healed from a high fever that Peter got to watch what happens to his mother. That had to be astonishing. High fever. What's a high fever? 102, 103, possibly 104. And all of a sudden, she's healed just like that. And next thing you know, she's serving him. Starts out small, one person healed from a fever. But a little bit later, the Bible tells us, a little bit later, even in that evening, something else happens. The word must have got out. Peter's mother-in-law was healed. Wow. And we just heard Jesus teaching in the synagogues. Powerful. So next thing you know, there's a whole bunch of people coming to Peter's house so Jesus can lay hands on them and heal them. And even the demon-possessed were healed. And all the while, not only the crowd was witnessing the greatness of this, Peter had a front row seat. And I got to believe that Jesus would want Peter to have the front row seat because, Peter, I've got greatness for your life. I've got a call in your life, Peter. I've got my eye on you. Peter, do you see what's happening right here? Do you see it? Peter, this is only the beginning of great things you will see and then participate in doing. Next thing our passage tells us is that Jesus is teaching by the lake in chapter 5. The lake of Gennesaret, or known as the Sea of Galilee, is where he's at. And because of the size of the crowd, people would have had a hard time hearing. And so Jesus sees the two boats and he gets into one. Guess which one he gets into? One of Simon's boats. Simon Peter. Not even asking him, but he did it. Jesus is purposeful about everything. He knew that was Simon's boat. So he gets into it. And Simon was a spectator at this point, watching him. Simon, I got to use your boat until I need you to do something for me. I'm going to use your boat to allow my voice to echo off the water so it will magnify my voice and allow everyone to hear. Please push the boat out from the side. Do you ever hear somebody, you ever go to a lake, and I think a Bear Lake, and some people across the lake will be talking. They won't be shouting, but you'll be listening. You'll be on the other side of the lake, and you can hear them. Jesus knew how to use a mic. They didn't have mics in those days. And so he would use the water. The water would echo his voice, and so people could hear. Simon, I want you to do something for me. Could you just push the boat out for a little bit? Simon's ministry opportunity starts out very small. Very small. But it does start out. Simon, push the boat out for me, will you? Just a little bit. I suggest this in a little application. Jesus will ask you to do something seemingly small before he will ask you to do something even greater. He who is faithful in the little things is faithful also in much. In Luke chapter 16, I think it is. I thought about Julian in my life and our life in church. In this church specifically, or even in the other church, we started out cleaning the church. It was kind of cool because nobody else was cleaning it. I like to mow lawns. I really do, because then you look at your lawn and then it's beautiful, you know. Well, this carpet was so dirty when I was vacuuming, I can see the lines. I can see clean and I can see not clean. Clean and not, I mean, it was bad. But so that's what we began to do. And then we began to do other things at nursery at that church as well. And then when we came to this church, we started out in the nursery. Mind you, we had no nursery kids. He was past the nursery. Why were we to do the nursery? We had a church of 150 or thereabouts when we first started coming to the church. Why are we doing the nursery? I remember telling Julie that, but that's okay. That's where the need was. That's what we filled. Our desire wasn't that. We wanted to do the youth, but somebody else already had desire for the youth, and they were doing the youth, so that's all good. So we'll start. Are you willing to do even in the small stuff? Are you willing to do that? You see, level of responsibility grows when obedience is followed through on, isn't it? It goes that way every way and any way. I started the work where I'm at now. I started cleaning the bathrooms. I started washing the floors. That's what I used to do in 97 to 2004. My job is still, I'm back there, and although I have a lot more responsibility, I do all the ordering on the supplies and stuff, I still get to do the bathrooms. And I still wash the floors. Personally, I like doing the bathrooms because I go to the bathroom in the bathroom. And I like my bathroom clean. And when I get done finishing the bathroom, it's clean. Simon pushed the boat out a little ways from the shore. Simon, the question is this: will you follow through on what I'm asking you to do? Will you do it? And of course he did. But then something else happens. Jesus ups the ante. Jesus ups the ante in this one. And Jesus tests Simon's obedience. That was a small task. I want you to do something else, Simon. I want to go fishing. I want to go fishing. So let's go fishing. And Simon in his head would think, and not only thought, but first he would have thought, Jesus, you don't know anything about fishing. As we know, fishing is at night. We fished through the night. We caught nothing. Tired. Didn't get any sleep. I don't know what time of the day it is right now, but you got to think he didn't get any sleep. And I don't know about you, but when I go fishing, it's not a whole lot of fun going back again when you haven't caught anything. Mom and Dad, I don't know if you remember this. Remember the cabin in Soda Springs that we went to? Remember our little dog Inu? And he was just a new dog with us. We didn't have him on a leash, but that little dog knew how to heel. He was just a little mutt. But boy, that dog was a sweet dog. Well, we hiked 9 miles. I think it was 9 miles because we walked 18 miles that day. We walked 9 miles in to go fishing at a lake. I don't know why else we did that, but at 12 or 10, 12, that's what I had in mind, to go fishing. So we walked 9 miles in to go fishing. Cold lake, deep, clear blue, beautiful. I remember that, rocks, fishing off the rock. But as a little kid, I'm looking for evidence of a fish. Anything. A dead fish would be fine, but something, bones, anything, to let me know that this is a 9-mile walk in. And so we did, and we didn't catch a thing. And we didn't even fish that long. And we summed to the fact that we probably there's no fish in this place. Because after all, lakes are only get stocked by fish. Fish just don't naturally show up in a lake. Kidding. But at 12 years old, maybe not. So we walked 9 miles back. Now think about it. If Brother Steve or George or Arn or Sister Cynthia said, hey, you know what? I've got a better lure and I left it here at the cabin. Let's walk 9 miles back and let's try that lake again. I think you're crazy. No, I ain't happening. Peter, I don't want to go fishing again. But you know what? If you want me to go fishing, I'll go fishing. Let's go one more time. Let's just go one more time. And if Simon was to follow through as he did, this request was going to change Simon's life forever. Think about that one thought right there. By Peter saying, okay, that okay changed his life because he did what Jesus asked him to do, and he experienced something he would have not experienced it, which would take him a lot farther than the fish in the net that landed into the boats. Much, much farther. They caught 2 boatloads of fish, and Jesus asked Peter to go fishing, and he shows Peter a miracle. But it doesn't end there either. Because of Simon's obedience, Jesus makes him a promise. One, he shows him a miracle. The second thing, he gives him a promise. Do not be afraid, Simon. From now on, you will catch men. You will catch men. Peter, remember the fish in the nets? So many fish that filled 2 boats. Remember what happened at your house? Start out with 1, but so many people with so many needs. People will swarm you, Peter, as fish swarm to the nets. They are so hungry for me, and you will be used to let down your nets that they may be caught. The fish was an object lesson to Peter of what Peter was going to see in the natural. Remember Peter's first sermon. Remember the day of Pentecost. Over 3,000 people got saved. I suggest that there was a net that went out and that many fish or people got into the net and were caught. Just because God could have used anybody, Jesus could have used God could have used anybody he wanted, but he had a perfect purpose for Peter. Peter, you're going to be a light. You're going to be a light to the Jews. And I'm also going to use you to the Gentiles as well. You're going to bring my message. I know Paul did too. Paul was to the Gentiles. But remember, and I've said this, and you know this, Cornelius' house. Remember, Jesus took Peter and crossed over from Jew to also to the Gentile. I have a heart for them too. Not just for the Jew, but for the Gentile as well. I've got a purpose for you, Peter. And and the way it starts out is by a simple, I'll do that. Not my will, but I will do that. I wonder how many times Jesus was asking me to do something that I thought might be so insignificant that I decided not to do it. And just decided, you know what? When in fact, I wonder if it would have led to something greater. Don't know. But I know that I serve a God that does not give up on you, and he doesn't give up on me. And I don't believe that all the times it's only a one-time wonder done, as man would do. I think God gives us chances because he wants to make sure his will is done in each one of our lives. And I believe Jesus wants greatness from our lives. And I believe we would make ourselves, if we make ourselves available to him. What is, and I thought about this, and I really, really thought about using the word greatness. Do I even want to put that? Because greatness, we start thinking multitudes of thousands of people coming to hear us speak, or we're driving. We have so much money, and we can do anything we want. We can buy anything we want because God's just pouring blessings upon blessings on us. So I wanted to almost not use that word greatness because it gets a misnomer. Greatness is whatever God decides to do, and whatever he defines that as for you and for you in your life. If you're a preacher, you may preach to 100 or you may preach to 1,000. Greatness is whatever. He who is faithful in the little things will be also faithful in much. And that was Luke 16:10. All it just starts out is saying, not my will, but yours be done. Yours be done. And then I thought about the second point, which I didn't even bother doing because it just, but I'm going to ask you this. What was it about Simon that Jesus singled him out for greatness as well as the others? But for Peter, why Peter? He's a fisherman. He didn't have 2 doctorates. He didn't know Hebrew and Greek. Maybe he did, but he didn't go to school to learn them. If he did, he didn't get educated. He wasn't using his education for making ends meet. He was a fisherman. He was a fisherman, just a simple, normal on the dial of the dryer or the washer, normal wash, normal dry. Just a normal man. Just somebody like you and somebody like me. He was just an ordinary person doing the ordinary things that ordinary people do. But he served an extraordinary God. I suggest that we are just ordinary people doing ordinary things as ordinary people do, serving an extraordinary God. So the question then comes to this: what can't you do if God, the extraordinary, is working through you? What can't you do? Pray for the sick that they might be healed. Give a word in season to him who is weary. Encourage somebody that's down on their life. Preach the gospel to somebody at work or people at work, or try to help somebody from stumbling. It's just something simple. Just encouraging somebody. It starts out small, but you never know what it might end up being. Don't limit God. But when I say don't limit God, don't limit yourself, because you can do some great things if you allow God to let you do it. Worship team.